This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello and welcome to Global Business Europe, live from CGTN in London. I'm Jamie Owen.
And I'm Robin Dwyer. Our top stories. Athens in peril. Strong winds fan the flames, forcing thousands of people to leave their homes near the Greek capital.
Our other headlines: Germany considers restrictions that could curb access to public life for people who refused a COVID vaccine.
Music to their ears. UK festivals will receive government support if they get cancelled because of COVID.
And what a mess over Messi. The footballer is too expensive to stay at Barcelona, but what price his departure?
Athens remains on high alert as wildfires continue to destroy villages just north of the Greek capital. Whole neighbourhoods have been evacuated, with over 600 tourists rescued from the island of Evia. The
Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis says the worst is still to come, with firefighters facing unforgiving conditions as winds pick up. He described this heatwave baking Greece as a powder keg situation and has urged people to follow orders to leave their homes. Our correspondent Evangelo Sipsas is in Athens for us. Evangelo, tell us about what you're hearing from those areas affected.
Well, I'm standing right now on a bridge crossing the main highway from Athens to northern Greece, and as you can see right behind me, there's large clouds of smoke coming out. Areas right now, urban areas as we speak, are being burned. The fires have ravaged properties and homes of people. There have been reports of a few people that are dead, about 12 to 14 people that are, sorry, not dead, I apologize, that are injured, but 0 dead. That is the good part from the latest from the fire brigade. The people who have been injured are ones that usually are ones with breathing problems that had to be taken to nearby trauma centers. And the emergency services, I don't know if you can see right behind me, but there's a dozen helicopters and planes overhead. And about 500 firefighters trying to combat the fires and the multiple fire fronts that are currently here north of Athens.
And are people complying with orders to leave their homes?
Yeah, well, there's alerts sent out from the Civil Protection Department to everybody's cell phone, encouraging to evacuate areas that are mostly affected. A lot of the people are complying with that alert. Some are not so keen on leaving behind their properties, and that's when the police steps in and patrols and makes sure that everybody's taking to safety.
They've been called the worst wildfires in Greece for over 30 years. How are people dealing with this, do you think?
Well, it's very, very difficult. People that have their properties have been destroyed and their houses burned down, they're not really not feeling well about it. They complain about the authorities not doing much because from yesterday till today, there's not enough helicopters, not enough aircrafts to drop water on the areas. And that's the one main concern that everybody here in Athens, north of Athens, is talking about. There has been a number of people, they're trying themselves to contain the fire with the help of volunteers with shovels or branches trying to take out the fires. But that's the only they can do. Since there's too many fire fronts, it's very difficult for the authorities to step in. Though the positive here is that there has been help from other countries, from Cyprus, from Romania, from Sweden. Even Israel announced that they will be sending power here and resources to fight the fires.
The Prime Minister has been speaking, and his words are pretty chilling, suggesting that the worst is yet to come.
Correct. In a televised statement late last night, the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis specifically said, he quoted, in a quote, he said, Greece right now is like a powder keg with these high temperatures and the winds that in the next days, the high winds that are forecasted for the next days will create everything much more difficult. He said that the worst is yet to come because we still have fires, we still have active fires, and the high winds are going to make the things worse. He encouraged everybody to avoid unnecessary travel, and he also said that everybody near the Greek capital, in the Greek capital and the surrounding areas, to be wearing masks at all time to avoid smoke inhalation.
Evangelos Ipsas in Athens, thank you very much.
The wildfires across southern Europe are heaping more problems on the tourism industry, already struggling with the effects of coronavirus. Sean Tipton is from the Association of British Travel Agents. I asked him about the impact.
Well, there have been pretty terrible fires in the southern Mediterranean, but mostly in Turkey in particular, and they have affected some extremely popular holiday destinations. Now, this would, normally speaking, be a pretty serious problem for us in the British travel industry, because Turkey is a very popular country for us. In a normal year, we'd send 2 million people on holiday there, and it's the height of the school holidays as well. But isn't so much of an issue for us currently, because the very simple reason being Turkey is on the red list, and also, which means people won't be going there for holidays, and also the Foreign Office is advising against travel to the entire country. So on that basis, there won't be, well, there'll be tiny numbers of British nationals in the area, and it sounds an awful way to look at it, but that's obviously the issue for us as an industry. Is it directly affecting our customers? And the answer to that is no.
And how about when it comes to Greece? Obviously, Greece and the Greek islands, another popular destination for British tourists.
Greece is a slightly different matter because we do have holidaymakers in Greece at the moment, but the vast majority of them go to the islands, not so many to the mainland, and as we haven't had any reports of customers being affected by the fires. It's an awful situation that can't be denied. But forest fires around the Mediterranean are not an uncommon event. Obviously, this year they seem to be particularly bad, particularly in Turkey, but they do occur. And tour operators are well practiced in, if there's any danger at all to customers, to moving them and moving them quickly. But this year in particular, just the sheer numbers of holidaymakers in the Med are pretty low. In southern Italy, for example, another quite a popular destination, particularly Sicily. Once more, British holidaymakers can't go to Italy, in effect, because they have to self-isolate for 5 days on arrival, and not many people would be prepared to do that at the start of their holidays. The numbers there will be pretty small as well. But still, shocking scenes, it can't be denied.
And tourism is, of course, a key slice of the economy in places like Turkey and in Greece. So how devastating will this be to the industry?
I think if this was a normal year, this would be pretty shocking, because there would be large numbers of tourists in tourist resorts, which are being affected, particularly in Turkey. But certainly from our perspective, from the UK perspective, it's not that, it's obviously a very serious issue, but not from a business perspective, as people just simply aren't travelling out at the moment. Another side to this is that, particularly in Turkey, people on package holidays tend to go on all-inclusives. And I'm not saying all of them do this, but quite a few just don't leave the hotel. They will stay there and sit around the pool. So if the area around them, the countryside, let's say, has been damaged, it won't necessarily stop them going.
So as you say, this year, not a normal year. It obviously follows on from last year, a terrible year for tourism. So do you think the industry can bounce back? What's your outlook for the next year? Well,
the travel industry is incredibly resilient. I mean, we have to be, because of the very nature of our business. Now, the last 2 years, that has been pretty shocking economically, because we've taken very little business. But for next year, we should be returning to some form of normality by then. We normally take 48 million, I'm not exaggerating, 48 million overseas holidays from the UK. And those numbers just haven't been there in the last couple of years. So all those people, like myself, will be very, very keen on getting away more than normal, I would say, next year. So I think we're going to have pretty much a bumpy year. And Turkey, I'm sure, will recover from this. But obviously, the scenes are pretty shocking, and it's tragic for the people involved.
German leaders are in talks about new restrictions that could dramatically curb access to public life for unvaccinated people. The proposed rules are among the toughest in Europe and would come into effect next month. Ryan Thompson reports now from Frankfurt.
Life has found a new corona normal here in Germany. People are out and about, seeing friends, enjoying summer beer gardens, and amazingly, despite the spread of the Delta variant, infections remain relatively low here. But Germany's health ministry knows that this type of situation cannot last forever. In recent weeks, it's prepared a number of new policies to offset a potential surge in cases in the fall and winter months that could eventually lead to a fragile health situation. This includes new variants, breakthrough infections in the vaccinated, and the wearing off of some shots. For starters, the government's goal is still to get as many people vaccinated as possible, and refusing the vaccine will begin to make life much more difficult. According to leaked documents seen by German media, as soon as next month, unvaccinated people could be excluded from many areas of public life. Hotels, restaurants, sports facilities, and large gatherings, both inside and outdoors. If cases remain low, unvaccinated people will still be able to do these activities by presenting a negative test. But by the middle of October, this will no longer be free. If cases reach dangerous levels, the health ministry says the testing option will fall by the wayside because it's no longer considered a valid safeguard. In this case, only people who have recovered from the virus or been fully vaccinated will be able to partake in their favorite pastimes. Many Germans are also expecting to be called for a third booster shot sometime this winter. The first round of these will begin in September, just over 9 months from the point when the country began its inoculation campaign. But the decision is causing a bit of backlash, not domestically, but with international organizations like the World Health Organization. They say that nations that are giving these booster shots are ignoring their appeals to hold off on these doses until poorer nations can vaccinate themselves first. Ryan Thompson, CGTN, Frankfurt.
Italians heading to the gym or an indoor restaurant must produce a COVID vaccine passport. New guidelines have come into effect across Italy, making the so-called Green Pass compulsory for a range of venues and activities. While many business owners agree with the scheme in principle, they say they shouldn't be responsible for enforcing the new rules. Hermione Kitson reports.
Day one of a post-pandemic era where life is governed by a Green Pass.
Our objective is to gradually resume the life we had before.
Gyms are one of many businesses where the government-issued pass is now compulsory. It's obtained after the first dose of vaccination, within 6 months of recovery or 48 hours of a negative test.
We really hope that the Green Pass can help prevent further restrictions and closures. We lost 75% of our clients since the beginning of the pandemic.
The pass is also necessary for diners who want to eat indoors. Sergio Natali is at the helm of one of Rome's most famous pizzerias and says law enforcement shouldn't be his job.
It's right to have the personal responsibility of a Green Pass, and public officials could come to the restaurant to check, but the responsibility of the clients shouldn't rest with me.
Other public places where the Green Pass will be required include museums, cinemas and stadiums.
I agree with the Green Pass, but it doesn't give us the green light to do whatever we want. We still have to be careful.
Business owners who don't enforce the rules face hefty penalties.
The fines that I know of are €500 for both the owner and client, and after 5 fines, the restaurant would be closed for 10 days.
There have been many protests against the Green Pass, but health officials say it's the way forward.
The Green Pass is an instrument needed to limit the circulation of the virus, because those who are vaccinated or who've tested negative within 48 hours theoretically don't have it.
The expansion of the Green Pass comes as Italy grapples with its 4th wave of infection, with thousands of new COVID cases every day and hospital admissions gradually on the rise.
The government maintains that the country's best armour is the vaccination campaign.
By the end of September, I believe we will cover at least 70% of the population and achieve herd immunity.
In the meantime, it's hoped further restrictions can be avoided for the crucial August holiday period. Hermione Kitson, CGTN, Rome.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, America at work. US jobs growth rises and unemployment falls. We're live in New York. Next.
Hello, I'm Stephen Cole at CGTN's European headquarters in London. My international guests help me help you set your agenda.
A well-looked-after body will make the brain happy.
That is the evidence.
We want to share the benefits of China development. this story is far from finished.
Join me on The Agenda at these times every week.
There is no more they, or you, or me. In today's economic landscape, there is only we. An interconnected world of business, trade, and investment. Daily coverage told simply, with insight and new perspectives. Global business. We've got the world covered.
This week on Razor, a special report on the battle to save Australia's iconic little blue penguins from introduced predators and climate change by giving them their very own special breed of allies.
To have an iconic species as your flagship to a particular conservation helps a lot. It's a quite unique attraction and it's quite incidental success.
Hello, welcome back to Global Business Europe. And remember, CGTN is available to watch for free on all of the major digital platforms, on Smart TV or online at Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire and Android TV, YouTube and Dailymotion, CGTN.com and the CGTN app.
Job growth in the United States rose solidly last month, with payrolls increasing by nearly 950,000 jobs. It's the biggest monthly gain since this time last year. The country's unemployment rate has also fallen from 5.9 to 5.4%. Let's talk now to our correspondent Sarah Walton in New York. So, Sarah, what's been the reaction to the jobs news there?
Well, pretty well received by the markets. The Dow was up about 150 points a short while ago. The S&P hit a new intraday high. The only exception is the Nasdaq, which was down about 0.5% a short while ago. Now, those figures, as you say, show that hiring increased by its fastest rate in the US since August 2020. And you have to remember that at that point, we were seeing a lot of the major COVID-19 lockdown restrictions being lifted in the US, a lot of people suddenly returning to work, so there were slightly artificial circumstances at that time. And this figure has come as, you know, a big relief, because the predictions we were hearing ahead of it coming out were all over the place. There was no confidence really that that figure would be going up, because there is this unknown element of the new spike in cases being driven by the Delta variant here in the US, and it's really not clear what impact that's going to have at the moment. The figures also came just a day after we had new data on new unemployment claims for last week, which showed there was a slight drop, but that essentially that figure has been holding flat through the summer. It's sort of stuck at around twice the rate it was before the pandemic. Joe Biden, though, definitely welcoming this news. He spoke at the White House a short while ago, and he said that it's down to measures that he brought in at the beginning of his presidency, such as the American Rescue Plan, which included sort of economic support for businesses and individuals, and the plan to roll out the COVID-19 vaccine. And he credits that with improving the situation that he said he inherited from his predecessor, Donald Trump.
We're in a dark winter, with real concerns about what spring would bring. But then we got to work. We passed the American Rescue Plan shortly after I was sworn in. And as we vaccinated America, we developed our economic tools to help our economy recover. As a result, in the past 3 months, we've created, on average, 832,000 new jobs per month since sworn in. That's compared to 50,000 jobs in the last 3 months of the previous administration.
So, Sarah, how significant are these figures going to be when it comes to setting monetary policy?
Well, analysts are saying that this is one of the key reports that the Federal Reserve is going to look at as it is considering how and when to taper off some of the measures it brought in to support the US economy during the height of the pandemic, the bond buying program, for example. We did hear from the governor of the Federal Reserve, Christopher Waller, who said that if the next few jobs reports were strong, he would support announcing a scaling back of those measures by September time, so that's not very far away. There is, though, not everyone feeling quite confident yet, because there is some concern that the surveys done for this new jobs report happened in the middle of the month, which was before the reintroduction of some COVID-19 measures in parts of the country, things like mask mandates, and some companies starting to require that their employees are vaccinated against COVID-19. You know, since then we've seen companies like Amazon and Wells Fargo Bank pushing back yet again their deadline for when they want their employees to return to working in the office. All of this because of the ongoing threat of the Delta variant here, where we're seeing new cases of COVID-19 tick up every day. And so the impact of this spike, I think, not going to be known more clearly until we get the jobs report for this month, which will come out in a month's time.
Sarah Walton, thanks very much.
And if you were with us yesterday, Sarah brought us President Biden's plan for half of all new American vehicle sales to be electric by the year 2030. The President went on to announce the target at the White House, driving this new electric SUV around the grounds. The administration is also tightening pollution standards for cars and trucks. It's all part of President Biden's broader plan to fight climate change, with the United States the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases after China.
We're all working together to write the next chapter of the American story. As I've said before, we're in competition with China and many other nations for the 21st century. To win, we're going to have to make sure the future will be made in America, a future of the automobile industry that is electric, battery electric, plug-in hybrid electric, fuel cell electric. It's electric, and there's no turning back. The question is whether we'll lead or fall behind in the race for the future.
Well, let's talk to Arun Kumar, who's Managing Director of Automotive and Industrial Practice at Alex Partners. Welcome, good to see you. First of all, just how realistic are President Biden's plans? And I wonder what challenges need to be overcome for them to become a reality.
Thank you, Jamie, for having me on. I think it's a pretty ambitious goal that what the Biden administration has set forth. This 50% voluntary target for battery electric vehicles squarely puts the U.S. ahead of Europe and China, which were in the 30 to 40% range for battery electric vehicles, or pure electric vehicles as we call it. So it's a pretty ambitious goal. A lot of things have to go right in order to make that goal a reality. And there's a lot of good news from the standpoint of consumers' interest, but also significant to be able to hit that goal.
This is the land of the truck, this is the land of the SUV and of cheap petrol. I wonder, how is America different to the rest of the world in terms of the way car buyers view electric vehicles?
Yeah, so at Alex Partners, we do a consumer survey every other year. And one of the things that we found was that 40% of the consumers are interested in considering a battery electric vehicle, whereas 19% of those consumers are actually really want to put money down to buy a battery electric vehicle. And as you can see, there's only a few models that are out there today for consumers to choose from. So if I'm looking for a pickup truck, there isn't a pickup truck electric vehicle that's available for me to buy. But the good news is that a lot of the automakers are pouring billions of dollars into developing the next generation of battery electrics. So we estimate from our study that about 200 plus new battery electric models are going to be out there in the future in the next 3 to 5 years, which allows consumers more choices. It allows consumers to pick the right segments that they want to be able to buy their vehicles.
Has America got a lot of catching up to do on EVs compared to Europe or China?
Yeah, I think a lot of the, I think U.S. was definitely trailing compared to Europe and China in terms of policies. But however, the automakers globally, including the U.S. automakers, were really spearheading the effort to get into electric vehicles. They have invested, close to $330 billion, or expect to invest in the next 5 years into new models, plant capacities, battery technologies. There's a lot of activity going on the supply side, but there's also challenges from the standpoint of getting these consumers into the infrastructure that's been built out in the U.S., which definitely lags, I would say, Europe and China. for a consumer like go and charge it, whether I'm locally driving around or if I'm going to be.
Aaron Coomer, I think we've lost the line, but thank you very much indeed. Aaron Coomer there from Alex Partners.
Huawei has reported a 38% drop in quarterly revenue after US sanctions took a further toll on the sale of smartphones. The Chinese telecommunications giant says it generated just under $50 billion in revenue for the first half of 2021, a significant drop from the $70 billion for the same period last year. The sale of telecoms equipment also decreased following US pressure on countries to drop the Chinese company as a supplier of 5G infrastructure.
Germany's industrial output fell unexpectedly in June by 1.3%, suggesting recovery is slowing in Europe's biggest economy. It's been held back by supply bottlenecks for components, including things like semiconductors, as well as a drop in the production of finished products like machinery and vehicles.
Logistics giant Maersk has bought 2 e-commerce companies as it tries to diversify. The Danish firm says the buyouts will help it expand from its core business of container shipping and into land-based operations like warehousing. Maersk has just reported a 60% rise in second quarter revenue.
Apple has announced plans to install software on American iPhones which can identify child sex abuse images. If suspicious material is found, it'll be reviewed and then the user reported to the police. The software, known as Neural Match, has raised privacy concerns, with computer scientists warning it could lead to government surveillance of millions of personal devices.
Qatar Airways has grounded 13 Airbus A350s because of fuselage defects. The airline's already reported to have stopped accepting deliveries of the aircraft after regulators reported what they described as rapid degradation. The company said it had been forced to bring older out-of-service planes back into operation to fill the timetable gaps.
Virgin Galactic has been selling tickets for space flights starting at a cool $450,000 per seat. This comes just weeks after the founder, Richard Branson, flew to the edge of space. In June, the US aviation safety regulator gave the go-ahead for the company to run commercial space flights. Virgin Galactic shares have risen 5% since the tickets went on sale.
British music festivals and other live events are set to be protected by a government-backed insurance scheme if they have to cancel because of COVID. Worth almost $100 billion to the economy, it's welcome news for the industry, which has virtually closed down during the pandemic. Nicole Johnston reports.
This year, many of the UK's music festivals are back, but only for those who can produce a negative COVID-19 test.
I kind of think this is the safest I've felt since I know everyone's gotten their tests and stuff, and even submitting my own negative test, it's like a comfort almost, definitely.
We have to get these special red wristbands here to show that we were tested negative.
Now the government has also announced an insurance scheme worth more than $1 billion to cover everything from music festivals to conferences in case COVID-19 restrictions force the event to cancel. But the music and events industry say for some festivals it's already too late.
Without a doubt, there have been some casualties. We're aware of that. Many of my counterparts have been battling on this for the best part of 9 months to a year. I think the real positive thing about this is it's delivering a level of confidence to the sector in terms of workforce, because as you can appreciate, many of them stepped out of the industry because they were uncertain of whether it was going to re-engage.
The UK's most famous music festival, Glastonbury, was the first major event to cancel this year, for the second year in a row. It was replaced with a live-streamed concert which had some technical problems. It's also decided not to hold a one-day concert next month. The Latitude Music Festival in Suffolk was able to go ahead this month, but only just.
There was some doubt after June the 21st and, the cancellation of what was Freedom Day and putting it back to the 19th of July really put me under pressure, really, because we opened just 3 days later. But what I managed to do is persuade the government to allow it into the events research programme, and that gave me a surety that it would happen.
Know your sister. But singer-songwriter Rory Graham, better known as Rag and Bone Man, says after more than a year of cancelled concerts, he feels confident tours will be back on by the end of the year.
I think I feel a little bit better about them now than I did a couple of months ago, because I kind of had this attitude where, like, I kind of felt like, well, they're not going to happen. They're in the diary, but they're not going to happen. But now I feel better about it, that they're going to go ahead. I just keeping my fingers crossed for like the actual tour coming up in October.
There are more than 700,000 people working in the UK's live events industry. That means a lot of jobs are depending on the government's insurance scheme to work. Nicole Johnston, CGTN, London.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead. First, it was higher US taxes, then the pandemic, now it's frost. Why we might all be drinking less French wine.
The EU's digital COVID certificate, which offers the promise of unlocking hassle-free travel around Europe this summer.
In less than 2 weeks' time, the Czech border will also open to all EU and Serbian citizens. 4.4 million Hungarians received their first dose of COVID vaccine.
18 and over can receive a COVID-19 vaccination, but it does come with conditions.
Third wave will probably take longer to emerge. This vaccination centre is part of a massive effort to try and drive down the numbers of the new variant that was first identified in India.
On the agenda with me, Stephen Cole, we look up into space. We look down into data. We look at debt. We look at politics. We look at opioids, climate change. We look at all the issues that really matter around the world. But you matter too. We want to tell the stories you want to see and hear about. Make it your agenda.
We can try out the wild and crazy ideas.
Nothing can stop an idea whose time has come, and this idea is coming.
I actually feel quite comfortable in isolation.
We should all be very busy when we're trying to save the world.
Oh, no.
We hope it will happen. We have to live in hope.
The agreement is signed. But what is the real deal now the UK has left the EU? For trade, for business, for the city, for ordinary people. Make sense of Brexit with CGTN. Hello, welcome back to Global Business Europe with Jamie Owen and Robin Dwyer. Our top stories. Athens in peril, strong winds fanned the flames, forcing thousands of people to leave their homes near the Greek capital.
COVID restrictions through the autumn and winter. Germany prepares for the pandemic for the rest of this year.
And America gets back to work as US jobs growth rises and unemployment falls.
China has reported its highest daily number of coronavirus patients from an outbreak that began in late July. 80 locally transmitted infections were confirmed on Thursday.
They are mainly driven by a surge in infections in eastern Jiangsu province, where 61 cases were reported. Its capital, Nanjing, has seen the largest COVID outbreak this year. That's where the Delta variant was first detected at the city's airport last month.
Another key area where the virus is resurging is the city of Zhangjiajie in China's Hunan province, which reported 9 new infections.
Neighbouring Hubei province, the original centre of the pandemic in 2020, confirmed 6 new cases.
It's prompted local authorities to impose strict lockdowns with travel restrictions and mass testing. Beijing has suspended most indoor activities, including the Beijing International Film Festival. Most flights coming from infected regions have been cancelled. Central China's Zhengzhou has begun its second round of citywide COVID testing. Meanwhile, Wuhan in Hubei province has prepared nearly 40,000 rooms for quarantine.
Back in Jiangsu province, the city of Yangzhou has become a new coronavirus hotspot with 58 new local cases. Liu Jiaxiong reports.
Starbucks coffee closed. Well, I'm here in Yangzhou's Hanjiang district, and clearly this is a shopping mall, but most of its stores have been closed. Well, in the city since July the 28th, over 200 cases have been reported. 70% of them are elderly people above 60 years old. The city's government has put some control and prevention measures on the residential compounds. And earlier, we've talked to a resident in Yangzhou City.
We can meet our daily needs. There are no confirmed cases in our community. Every day, one person from each family can go out and buy food. The communities with confirmed cases will be closed and managed, and the government will send food for them directly to the community.
You see this whole street is so empty. It doesn't look the way it used to be.
Liu Jiaxing, CGTN, Yangzhou, Jiangsu Province.
Europe.cgtn.com has all the week's top stories from China. Here's a quick look. All that and more at Europe.cgtn.com.
Southeast China is bracing for more heavy downpours after Typhoon Lupit made its second landfall. Flights have been cancelled, bridges closed and train services suspended. Officials have also moved 25,000 people from their homes and asked fishing boats to return to port. Harbours, passenger ferry routes and offshore tourist activities have been closed, while offshore construction has also been halted.
11 large wildfires are spreading in California after ravaging communities in the Sierra Mountains for the past several days. The largest wildfire, known as the Dixie Fire, has been burning for 3 weeks. Nearly 1,000 residents in the historic town of Greenville were ordered to leave before the fire arrived.
Residents in Sydney have been warned to brace themselves for a surge in coronavirus cases after a second straight day of record infection levels. 279 new COVID cases were recorded over the last 24 hours, 20 more than the previous day. More than 60% of Australians are in lockdowns as authorities try to contain an outbreak of the highly contagious Delta variant.
There's been a third day of rocket fire across the Israel-Lebanon border. Iranian-backed Hezbollah fired multiple shells towards Israeli forces, drawing retaliatory fire from Israel into Lebanon. Both sides have accused the other of starting the latest skirmishes. No casualties have been reported.
Rebel fighters from Ethiopia's northern Tigray region have taken control of the town of Lalibela. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Fighting between the rebels and government forces has spread into surrounding areas in recent weeks, forcing some 250,000 people to flee.
In Afghanistan, the Taliban is reported to have taken control of its first provincial capital, the city of Zaranj in Nimroz province, which borders Iran. It comes after the group assassinated the government's top media officer in the capital, Kabul. The Taliban have vowed to target leading figures associated with the Western-backed government. The UN's special representative for Afghanistan warned that their deliberate targeting of cities would cause huge civilian casualties, but that the international community could still work to end the conflict.
Afghanistan is now at a dangerous turning point. Today we have an opportunity to demonstrate the commitment of the UN Security Council and the regional and international community that you represent to prevent Afghanistan from descending into a situation of catastrophe so serious that it would have few, if any, parallels in this century.
French wine growers had already been suffering losses from higher US taxes and the pandemic before devastating spring frosts and summer downpours ravaged the harvest. Now the country's farm ministry says wine production could drop by as much as 30% this year, its lowest level in decades. Well, let's talk to CGTN's correspondent Ross Cullen in Paris. Ross, this doesn't look good for French wine producers.
No, Jamie, I know you'll be paying a particular special attention to this. Not going to be a vintage year 2021. The Agriculture Minister, Julien de Normandie, saying that the frost attack in April was probably the worst catastrophe that has hit the agriculture industry in France so far this century. Such dramatic terminology really underscoring how important the wine industry is to France. France is the world's second biggest producer of wine after Italy. Now, we do need to look at these two meteorological events which really affected the wine forecasts, which we've just had out the predictions from the Agricultural Ministry, the unseasonably cold and late spring frosts, and also the wet weather that we have been having more recently in the summer. If we look at what happened with the frosts, the buds on the vines burst in around March, and then if you do get a late frost in April, that can literally nip the vines in the bud and cause damage to the vines then. And then later in the year, if you get wet weather in the summer, in June and July, as we have had, that can also cause a proliferation of mildew and other fungal diseases which can attack the vines for a second time round. That is why we are seeing these predictions of historically low production levels of wine from the Agriculture Ministry today, with its first forecasts, not just for the wine industry, but also for other agricultural products. We are seeing an impact for the apricot farming industry, for apples, and also for crops such as beetroots and rapeseed.
Ross, is it just France in trouble? What's the situation for other winemaking countries in Europe?
We have seen some seriously bad weather recently. The natural disasters that we have witnessed in Belgium and other neighbours for France, such as winemaker Germany. Nearly 200 people losing their lives, dozens of people still missing, and those wine regions really ravaged by the floods as well, washing away vines that have been in place for 100 years in some places. Estimates coming in that the loss to the industry in Germany could be around $60 million. It really does show how the wet weather has affected wine regions in France and also in Germany.
Ross Cullen in Paris, thank you very much.
Since the pandemic began, over 500 million people joined social media for the first time. The photo-sharing app Instagram saw more new users than any other platform. But the overconsumption of social media sites has also been linked to depression and anxiety. CGTN's Stephen Cole has been speaking to writer and influencer Bella Younger, who wound up in rehabilitation for her addiction to Instagram.
How many likes or follows I got in a day would determine how well I perceived my day to be going. So if I posted something and it didn't get 1,000 likes within 10 minutes, that was my cutoff. I would decide that I was a failure and my career was over and that everybody hated me. And if I got that, I'd be like, okay, well, I'll live to post another day and everything will be okay.
And although what started, I suppose, as a joke, then took its toll on you because you ended up in the clinic, didn't you, the Priory Clinic?
Yeah, massively. And when I was there, my doctors had never really encountered anything like it. They weren't aware that social media could be addictive in the same way as alcohol or drugs. And they just saw that I had a great career and that I needed to keep it going. And so it took a really long time for me to actually get better and find the root cause of what was going on.
And you can see more of that story in the agenda with Stephen Cole on Saturday at 16:30 GMT here on CGTN.
Drought is bringing chaos to much of Central Asia. Kazakhstan is appealing to neighbouring countries for emergency supplies of water as the country's famous horses bear the brunt of the shortage. Falling water levels in the Caspian Sea are thought to be adding to the problems caused by high summer temperatures across the Russian steppe region. More at europe.cgtn.com.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, a deep dive into a sports school nurturing the next Olympians.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Mari, what would you say is a good question?
Stephen, I'd say it's one where there's always more than one answer.
The Answers Project is a new podcast series from CGTN Europe. With me, Stephen Cole.
And me, Mari Beveridge. In each episode, we'll take a complex question.
And with the help of some of the world's foremost experts, shine light on some of the answers. So join us for The Answers Project.
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, welcome back to Global Business Europe. Barcelona says it can't afford to re-sign its star striker Lionel Messi because of salary limits, and a new deal would have risked the football club's future.
The Argentine, who's been with Barca for 21 years, is said to be shocked, but is now considering other offers. Paris Saint-Germain, who could buy the 34-year-old without breaking any financial rules, is reportedly making progress in talks to sign him. Well, let's talk to Kieran Maguire, who's a football finance lecturer at the University of Liverpool. Great to have you with us on the programme, Kieran. So, Messi is apparently unable to stay at Barcelona because of financial and structural obstacles. What does that really mean? What's gone on here?
Well, under Spanish football rules, you're given a limited budget at the start of each season, which is based on the revenue generated and your amounts of debts. The problem that Barcelona have had is that revenues have collapsed as a result of being unable to sell tickets to fans. And they are a club that ran a fairly precarious financial regime, and they've got an awful lot of debt. So you put those two factors together, and that meant that there was less money available to pay wages. So although Lionel Messi had agreed a wage cut of around about 50%, it would still have exceeded the allowable wage limit.
Well, as you say, he did offer to take a wage cut. Isn't there an argument that, given the reduction in income from all clubs caused by the pandemic, that wages paid to footballers need to be cut across the board?
Well, I think there is general downward pressure. That's certainly what we are seeing as contracts are being renewed. But La Liga, the Spanish football system, does have a very tough audited regime when it comes to football spending. And even with the offer from Lionel Messi, that wasn't deemed to be sufficient. But I think we will see overall downward pressure in many markets in football over the forthcoming months and years.
Well, let's talk about another market, the UK. We've seen Manchester City paying huge amounts for Jack Grealish, a Premier League record of almost $140 million. So how seriously have clubs suffered in this pandemic if they can afford to pay this kind of money?
Well, Manchester City do have the benefit of having won the Premier League last season, which generates additional prize money, as well as getting to the final of the Champions League. So I think you have to look at money coming in and money going out. Their star striker, Sergio Aguero, who was on around about $18 million a year. He's left, so that's freed up some of the wage budget. And the way that football accounts for players is that the cost of the deal, whilst it's $140 million in cost, it's actually spread over the life of Jack Grealish's contract. So it works out as about $23 million a year.
There's a big disparity, though, isn't there, between what Premier League clubs are earning and those in lower leagues, some of which have struggled enormously during the pandemic to survive?
Yes, the reason why the Premier League is so successful is because it is a global product. It generates an audience in practically every country in the world. Often a lot of that comes via subscription TV. So the Premier League's costs or its ability to pay wages is driven by the money coming in. If we drop down a few tiers into the lower echelons of football, they tend to be far more localized, and therefore their revenue generation abilities are far more constrained. This means that they are unable to pay the same level of wages, and there is a huge gap now between the elite and the non-elite.
Let's go back to Messi for a moment. He'll be a loss on the field, obviously, but also in terms of what the club can earn from using his name and his image.
Yes, and I think this has come at a very tough time for Spanish football, who are presently trying to sell 10% of La Liga effectively to a private equity house for an exchange of around about $3 billion. Lionel Messi is without doubt the biggest draw, not only in Spanish football, potentially in world football. So for Barcelona to lose their star appeal in terms of the ability to generate new commercial and sponsorship deals will be an additional challenge for the club.
And football fans will, of course, be wanting to know where he goes next.
Yes, certainly he could go to Paris for PSG. The owners there are an independent wealth fund from Qatar, so they do have substantial resources. There is still talk of him coming to the Premier League, potentially to go to Manchester City to join Jack Grealish, because he wouldn't involve a transfer fee. And one final alternative appears to be the American-based Major League Soccer, MLS, because whilst they do have wage controls there, they have star player clauses in which effectively the one star player in the team, his wages are not counted towards the wage cap.
OK, Kieran Maguire from the University of Liverpool, thanks very much indeed for joining us today.
Thank you.
Two Belarus coaches have had their Tokyo Games accreditation revoked by the International Olympic Committee. The move comes just days after they ordered the sprinter Kristina Tsimanouskaya to return home. She refused to board a flight and instead sought protection from police before gaining asylum in Poland. Athletics head coach Yuri Moisevich and team official Artur Schumack were asked to leave the Olympic Village.
After 2 weeks of drama, surprise results and emotional highs and lows, the Olympics finished this weekend with the closing ceremony on Sunday. China is leading the medals board with 36 gold, 26 silver and 17 bronze medals. The US is in second place, followed by Japan, Great Britain and the Russian Olympic Committee. John Matthews has the latest from Tokyo.
Well, Friday was a good day for China in the men's team table tennis, taking gold in 3 straight matches against Germany as host country Japan was relegated to bronze. Now, there were better fortunes for the host in freestyle wrestling. Japan's 2-time world champion Mayu Mukaida was able to come back from a 4-0 shortfall, equalizing and then taking the gold against China's double world championships medalist Pang Xianyu in the women's 53-kilogram final. Now, China's 4x100 meters men's relay team set a new national record but took no podium place. The 37.79 seconds they marked was just 900ths behind bronze winner Canada, and Italy barely edged out Great Britain by 100th of a second at 37.50. China would also take the gold in the women's javelin. Cuba is once again putting on a show in the boxing ring, taking home its 3rd Tokyo 2020 gold in the sport as Julio Cesar La Cruz toppled the Russian Olympic Committee reigning heavyweight champion. La Cruz had come out on top in Rio 2016, but in the light heavyweight category. Now, COVID cases are also rising here in Tokyo. Friday saw the second highest daily count on record at just over 4,500, second only to Thursday's 5,000 plus. Severe case counts are also up, with hospitals now turning away those who don't require ventilators. Japan's Ministry of Health says Tokyo could easily report more than 10,000 daily cases soon, with no clear end in sight to the fifth wave. Now, despite that, discussions are underway about possibly allowing spectators at the Paralympics to begin August 24th. Now, one Tokyo official said it would be very hard to explain allowing the flow of 770,000 ticket holders in the current COVID situation. John Matthews, CGTN, Tokyo.
China has long been considered a powerhouse when it comes to the Olympic Games. That's thanks in part to a strong sports program and sports training schools. CGTN Saobing has been to see how one training school is nurturing Olympic hopefuls.
With as little a splash as possible. These kids practice their dives off the platform at the Guangzhou Polytechnic of Sports, a full-time vocational school for youngsters hoping to unlock their athletes' abilities. The campus has 14 sports teams. They're swimming, wrestling, and trampoline jumping.
For many young children here, the school is more than a sports training ground. It is also the start of what they hope will lead to a long and rewarding career in their chosen sport, because they know many other people who have attended the school in the past later became the decorated Olympians.
Since its founding in 1973, the school has nurtured a total of 8 Olympic champions, along with 39 world champions. Tan Jingyu has been the school's diving coach for over 30 years.
Sports training requires hard work and concentration, but these are children, and children are playful. Therefore, sometimes we give them the freedom to express themselves, let them do whatever movements they like, so that they feel the beauty and joy of the sport.
She also spoke of how competitions could mold the students' personalities.
Every year, our kids will take part in a couple of competitions and will go through a lot of successes and failures. Everyone wants success, but learning how to stand up again after failing and continuing to challenge oneself is more important.
Only a few can end up being world record-breaking athletes and Olympic medalists. But Coach Tan and the school hope the love for sports will not only bring out the best of their physical abilities, but the children's sense of fair play, sportsmanship, and strength of character. Caobing, CGTN, Guangzhou in Guangdong Province.
A German humanitarian ship carrying rescued migrants has been allowed to dock in Italy. The news was met with cheers from all 257 migrants on board the Sea-Watch 3. The migrants were pulled from an overcrowded boat in the Mediterranean in an operation that lasted 6 hours. Italian authorities gave permission for the ship to dock in Sicily on Saturday.
The headlines again. Athens in peril. Strong winds fan the flames, forcing thousands of people to leave their homes near the Greek capital.
Germany considers restrictions that could dramatically curb access to public life for people who've refused a coronavirus vaccine.
And in a mess over Messi, Barcelona says it can't afford to re-sign its star striker, Lionel Messi, because of salary limits.
That's it for Global Business Europe. Thanks for watching.
More on all of our stories at europe.cgtn.com. And do follow CGTN Europe on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. We're on smart TV apps such as Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire and Android TV, YouTube and Dailymotion, cgtn.com and the CGTN app.
Coming up next on CGTN, it's Africa Live. See you again on Monday, same time, same place. From all the team here in London, goodbye.
Goodbye.